Hey, see if you can find anything worth watching.
Is that the Dimensionator?
Yep.
I assume it is no longer functional.
Nope. You know, I just can't catch a break.
I am sorry.
That's okay.
If the Dimensionator was functional, would you use it?
To find the Lombaxes? I don't know. There was a time I would have said yes, but at this point, there's more for me here than over there. Come on. We don't want to keep her waiting.
Defeat me, I will bring in all of my armies, all of my followers. You will bow before me.
He's gonna destroy the dimensions.
Hold up. We gotta talk about how we got here first. What's good, everybody? Let's start by getting the obvious out of the way. Click away now if you don't want Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart spoiled. A full spoiler warning is in effect for all things Ratchet & Clank. Second, as a longtime fan of this series, my opinion will come with a certain amount of bias. I grew up with these characters, and there's something fundamentally video gamey to me about these experiences. When some people think of gaming, they might picture Mario nailing that perfect jump. I too think of that, because I've played my fair share of Mario, but I also put Ratchet smashing everything with his wrench right up there on that pedestal of fundamental video game experiences every gamer should have. I tell you this so you'll have some context for where I'm coming from. Without further delay, let's get into the story. We start with a mysterious figure climbing out of a tunnel. They swipe an infobot and make a run for it. Due to time and budget constraints, we miss out on what was shaping up to be a very promising chase sequence. Instead, we get this shot that establishes a parallel between the mystery figure and Ratchet. We meet Ratchet and Clank as they're about to join a parade being held in their honor. They go through some self-aware dialogue, questioning if they have the ability to be heroes after being out of the action for a number of years. 8 years to be exact if we ignore the 2016 retelling of the first game, not that anyone's counting. Thank you, Insomniac, for noticing. What? Oh yeah, the parade is going well when some bad guys show up. After some fighting, the pair find themselves alone on a platform where Clank tells Ratchet he has rebuilt the Dimensionator since the events of Into the Nexus. He intends to give it to Ratchet so he can find the Lombaxes. Ratchet hesitates for some reason, which gives recurring villain Dr. Nefarious time to show up. Guess he really did miss hanging out with the old gang. Of course, Nefarious steals the Dimensionator, Ratchet and Clank give chase, the Dimensionator gets destroyed, and all three characters find themselves in a new dimension. Nefarious thinks he's emperor of this new dimension, Clank is recovered by the mystery figure from the opening sequence, and Ratchet sets out in search of Clank. After seeing Clank get taken off planet, Ratchet is told to find someone named Phantom to get a ship to continue the chase. Phantom turns out to be an alternate dimension version of Skid McMarx, a recurring side character in the series. Alternate dimension Skid gets his jollies by trying to take down Emperor Nefarious, as opposed to normal Skid, who fakes an injury to avoid a fight.
I've had a little trouble getting back to my ship due to my sprained ankle.
Oh, come on.
Skid gives Ratchet a fancy lockpick named Glitch, and decides to celebrate by turning himself into the authorities so he can, tear the whole rotten world down from the inside. More on that later. Ratchet uses his new hacker companion to activate the elevator to Nefarious Tower. There, he comes face to face with the Doctor and commits a mildly felonious act of grand theft ship. We cut away to Clank and his new traveling companion, whom we learn is a Lombax named Rivet. She's part of the resistance against Emperor Nefarious. After some shenanigans in Jurassic Park, Clank meets a peace-loving, feather-headed lizard named Gary, and Rivet discovers she isn't the only Lombax in existence. Then it's off to Moron Mountain from the 1996 movie Space Jam, otherwise known as Zurky's Bar, to find a way for Clank to contact Ratchet. It's here we find out what happened to Looney Tunes character Pepe Le Pew after he got kicked out of the Space Jam sequel. He moved to an alternate dimension, built a robot disguise, and now parades around as a flamboyant Frenchman whose advances are somehow deemed less offensive. Pepe has adopted the stage name of Pierre Laferre for this adventure, and Rivet must fight some guys before he'll give her the part she needs to fix Clank's communicator. With the communicator repaired, the group decides they have to rebuild the Dimensionator to fix the mess they're in, and they devise a plan that puts Act 2 of the story into motion. Ratchet will go to planet Savali to meet Gary and get blueprints for the Dimensionator. Rivet will take Clank to Blizar Prime to get phase quartz to make the Dimensionator work. Ratchet meets alternate dimension Clank on Savali. This tiny yellow robot goes by the nickname Kit, but we all know she's secretly Bumblebee, the Transformer robot in disguise. Ratchet and Kit obtain the blueprints and head off to Cordelion to build the new Dimensionator. Rivet and Clank do some sweet dimension hopping on Blizar Prime before fulfilling Rivet's lifelong dream of playing with a giant shaft. Unfortunately, the drill shaft malfunctions and destroys the phase quartz, sending the pair to Tauren 4 in search of a way to fix it. Back on Cordelion, Ratchet and Kit do some dimension hopping of their own. There's a chase sequence involving the mutated goldfish your parents prematurely flushed down the toilet. You were right to say he wasn't dead yet.
I'm not dead! Yeah, he says he's not dead. Yes, he is.
Things are going okay until we hit a difficulty spike in this glitch puzzle. Tell me I'm not the only one who died over and over at this part. Cue that failure montage.
We finished the circuit, ma'am.
Oh yeah, but it is weak. Weak!
After you escape the ambush, the mutated goldfish finds another mutated goldfish, what are the odds, giving Ratchet and Kit time to forge the Dimensionator. Meanwhile, Rivet spends 2 seconds recovering from a fall that would send anyone else to the ICU before fighting her way to the Fixer. Turns out the Fixer is broken and trying to destroy everything. What a twist! Clank channels his inner daytime TV psychiatrist and convinces the Fixer that everything will be okay. Relieved, the Fixer repairs the broken phase quartz. What looks like a happy reunion at Zurky's doesn't last long. Nefarious' spy network has been tracking the group's every move. Rivet is upset because she specifically opted out of location sharing services on her mobile device to avoid this from happening, and decides to fight Nefarious one-on-one. She wins, but then the big bad shows up. The real Emperor Nefarious of this dimension has been away playing golf or something this whole time, but now shows up to steal a functional Dimensionator. He decides to leave the Lombaxes alive because all good supervillains like to handicap themselves whenever possible. Ratchet and Clank go to Ardolis to seek an ally named Captain Quantum. Rivet and Kit go to Sargasso to stop the Emperor's invasion force. This sets up the story's third and final act. Ratchet and Clank survive waves of space pirates and a kraken named Bubbles before finally meeting up with their target. With a butt chin like that, longtime series fans will recognize him as an alternate dimension Captain Qwark. We learn Quantum somehow has a helmet that lets him spy on the Emperor. Unfortunately, this is of no immediate value, as the Emperor shows up and sends Quantum through a rift. The only good news is Ratchet still has the helmet. Meanwhile, Rivet and Kit use the help of a fire-breathing lizard named Trudy and a group of Ewoks from North Dakota to stop the Emperor's invasion force. I guess Emperors never learn to stop messing with small furry creatures. Clank uses the helmet to hear the Emperor say he plans to take over every dimension. To do this, he will need a map found on Savali. After some fighting, the Doctor steals the map and sends Ratchet and Clank through a rift. We learn Kit is the one who injured Rivet's arm, meaning they'll need to engage in some serious journaling before reconciling their differences. As Transformer Kit tries to stop the Emperor, the Doctor activates the Dimensionator and sends Kit away through a separate rift. The Emperor and the Doctor then disappear because taking Rivet out would make too much sense. Rivet goes to Zordoom Prison to free Ratchet, Clank, and Kit. She also frees Skid and Quantum. Yes, Skid's plan of taking down the Empire from the inside was to get captured and then set in a prison cell. I think Dutch Vanderlyn made better plans.
I found the way to Tahiti, Arthur!
Right as they're about to escape, Kit decides she's not cut out for the hero business. Since she hasn't had time to journal about her feelings yet, Rivet says, screw it, and leaves Kit behind. Back at Zurkie's, the Emperor makes an announcement that he's going to attack Ratchet's home dimension. Both heroes fight the Emperor in his battlesuit until Ratchet gets inside and destroys the heart. With the suit destroyed, Rivet faces the Emperor one-on-one. The Emperor calls in his entire army, and it looks like Rivet is about to get blasted into oblivion. That's when all the Lombaxes, who have been lost in another dimension for years, show up to save her. Wait, sorry, that's not what happens. Kit finished journaling about her feelings and flew herself through dimensions to this exact spot at this exact time and saves the day. Despite being the only one the Emperor has been afraid of this entire time, Kit decides it makes more sense to throw Rivet at the Emperor for the kill shot, because logic has no place when trying to make something this cinematic. After Rivet gives the Emperor a good smack, Ratchet and Clank show up with the Dimensionator and summon Bubbles to pull the Emperor through a rift. Dr. Nefarious is unceremoniously squashed, Clank fixes the dimensions, and Ratchet and Rivet tease visiting the Lombax dimension as the credits roll. Despite some of the ridiculousness I've pointed out, I thought the core story was solid. The biggest thing this game does is show me Insomniac isn't done with this franchise. Going into this, I wasn't sure if this was a curtain call or a setup for things to come. Ratchet, finding his dimensional counterpart, appears to have been the spark he needs to go look for the other Lombaxes. This has been the biggest loose end in the series for over a decade. If they hadn't addressed that question at all, it would have been a missed opportunity. Furthermore, the tone of the story is varied enough to keep players engaged. Sure, there's nothing as overtly adolescent as this gem from Up Your Arsenal.
I seen him run right through our camping site. He was buck naked, screaming and holding a banana. Or maybe it weren't a banana. It could be.
But they still managed to give us promiscuous robots.
Hi, yeah, are you the Phantom?
I am whatever you want me to be, Fluffy.
Rivet fantasizing about playing with a giant shaft.
Wow. It's been my lifelong dream to operate a drill 100 times bigger than me.
Really? That is very specific.
And whatever this was.
Ooh.
Moving on. This is Zurkon.
You're trying to seduce me.
The lighter moments in the story are balanced out by visible signs of struggle. Rivet is missing an arm. Clank is missing an arm and can't walk for the majority of the game. Ratchet and Kit question if they're cut out for being heroes. Our main characters are separated for good chunks of the story. There's real disagreement, if only briefly. We're trying to stop two Nefariouses. None of this is supposed to be easy, and there are reminders of that along the way to make sure the story isn't a total cakewalk. What I struggled with story-wise was the pacing, especially toward the end. I liked the rising action of the first and second acts as we plotted our way through this alternate dimension. My biggest issue with pacing is that once the third act starts, the game is basically over. I could have gone for maybe one or two more sequences prior to the ending. Maybe Ratchet and Clank go to find Kit and try to talk her into fighting. Maybe the Emperor figures out that the Lombaxes are alive and sends a squad after them and they have to go on the run. Maybe they wind up finding some new planet and find a clue that teases the location of the dimension where the other Lombaxes are living. Something, anything, to give that last act maybe 45 to 60 minutes more playtime would have felt more natural to me. As it is, the ending feels rushed. Speaking of the ending, let me set the stage for what was going through my mind when Kit returned. Remember in 2015 when Star Wars Episode 7 came out? And you went to the theater and people were excited to see the movie because Episode 8 hadn't come out and turned everyone against the franchise? If you had a good crowd like I did on opening night, people cheered when something exciting happened during the movie. Then you come down to that one scene where Kylo was trying to pull the lightsaber out of the snow. It flies right by him, and Luke, whom we haven't seen in a Star Wars movie in 32 years, catches it, and the audience goes wild. Wait, scratch that. That would have been awesome, but Disney had other plans. We all know Rey catches the lightsaber. In the same way, Insomniac had other plans with this installment. I think if Rivet had turned around and seen an entire army of Lombax ships that had come out of hiding, the fandom would have loved it. Granted, it would not have made much sense, given how the story had been told up to that point. Kit's return, while confusing in the sense of how did she know to come here, does make more sense in the context of the story. But come on, I think any longtime fan of the series would have been excited to see the Lombax's return like that. I do have to question how long Insomniac will keep stretching this Lost Lombax Dimension storyline out. The upside of ending the game the way they did is it means there will likely be at least one more game in the series. The downside is coming to terms with the possibility that Insomniac doesn't know what they want to do with the series after Ratchet finds the Lombaxes, or, if they do, they want to milk this series for every penny it's worth before that finally happens. Neither of those possibilities make me feel great. That said, if the story and gameplay stay fun, I'll keep coming back until they give me a reason not to.
You came after me. Thank you.
That brings us to one of the main reasons I think people keep coming back to the series. The characters. Let's start with Kit. This warbot goes through arguably the most character development in the story. She starts out timid and convinced she doesn't make a good sidekick. She overcomes this by the end when she goes beast mode to save Rivet. Kit having this mech ability probably shouldn't have been a surprise. Clank has a mech form as well, but it's been a number of years since we've seen it. The other thing Kit does for the story is to get Ratchet to talk about why he doesn't want to find the Lombaxes. We'll get to Ratchet in a few moments. First, let's switch over to his dimensional counterpart, Rivet. I remember thinking that introducing a new playable character was a risky move. Luckily for Insomniac, I think it paid off in a huge way. I enjoyed switching between protagonists. Granted, they both play the same since they both share weapons and abilities, but there are times when Rivet reminds me more of the old Ratchet than Ratchet does. She's the one out here showing any semblance of snark during fight scenes.
What do you think of my new look? I call it my power suit. I rarely have an occasion to break it out.
I guess your funeral's as good a time as any.
She's the one who initiates the final fight against the Emperor.
When do we leave?
She has a compelling enough backstory to keep her interesting. Unlike Ratchet, who stumbled his way into fighting against evil, Rivet has grown up in this lifestyle.
Yeah, you could say that. I've fought a long time to win our galaxy back. Lost friends, my arm.
And she's never beaten Nefarious until teaming up with the rest of the group. Who doesn't love a good underdog story? I hope we see more of Rivet and Kit in the future. Their journey from strangers to partners was a nice callback to how Ratchet and Clank came to work together. Clank is his classic self, serving as the brains of the operation. He's the one experimenting with dimensionality by solving the puzzle sections. Doing so allows him to learn how to use the Dimensionator to fix reality. Along the way, he struggles with his own sense of failure. If he hadn't rebuilt the Dimensionator, none of this would have happened. His positivity also keeps the mood hopeful, even at the bleakest of times.
You said it, pal!
Did I mention he's shinier than ever thanks to the PS5's ray tracing capabilities? Pause the game, I gotta get some sunglasses. That brings us to Ratchet. Now, I'm not the first to say this. Ratchet isn't the same character longtime fans of the series have come to know. He isn't making snide remarks every 5 minutes.
Hey, you're that robot guy, right?
No, actually, I build robots. I myself am not a robot guy, per se.
Nerd.
I like him.
He isn't getting mad every time someone gets in his way.
Hey, who let you in here? Get lost before I flatten your robot into a hubcap.
Touch him, and it's Plasma City!
Oh gosh, you didn't have to yell. Why did he have to yell?
And while I do wish he had more smart alecky comments like he did back in the early days of the series.
Clank?
Yes?
Do you notice anything unusual about Captain Qwark?
Well, I find the fact that he has a spring where his leg should be to be quite puzzling.
And why do you think that is?
Possibly an injury incurred while battling evil?
This isn't the real Captain Qwark, you numbskull. It's a robot.
Oh.
I haven't totally turned against this version of the character either. He's been through a lot over the last 19 years. He's carrying the weight of saving the universe multiple times and being looked up to as a hero. He's weighing the choice of leaving the dimension he knows to look for the Lombaxes in a dimension he doesn't know. It's heavier subject matter than he dealt with in the early games, but it is hard to not wish he had more spunk to him, especially in key moments. Like right here, when the Emperor finishes his announcement, Ratchet looks absolutely dejected, instead of perking up like he's ready for a fight. What's wrong, my dude? Did Insomniac Games forget how to write for you? Why do we not see the trademark grit we've come to expect from you? Why does Rivet have to be the one that spurs Ratchet on to fight? There could be a number of reasons. Could be they're trying to establish Rivet as a character. Could be they're trying to make Ratchet more relatable by making him less brash or arrogant. Whatever the reason, this version of Ratchet appears to be here to stay. At the end of the day, this is just a game, and it's up to players to decide if the change in Ratchet's character is something they can stick around for. Let's circle around to the villains. I thought the Emperor was a fitting iteration of Dr. Nefarious' dimensional counterpart. Whereas Dr. Nefarious always had moments of comic relief sprinkled in, Emperor Nefarious comes across as being capable of doing some bad things. He warps an innocent group of fans through a rift. He has aspirations of conquering multiple dimensions, which is more than the Doctor can ever say. The fact he gets pulled into a rift rather than destroyed suggests he could make another appearance in the series, which would be okay with me. Even though I'm not sure if we'll see the Emperor again, I do expect the Doctor will return. To get crushed in the background of a shot is no way for him to go out. He has survived much worse in the past, and I expect he'll be back to pester our heroes again. Let's address a few side characters that did not make an appearance. The most glaring omission to me is Talwyn Apogee. She was the daughter of explorer Max Apogee, who disappeared prior to the events of Tools of Destruction. He was trying to keep the original Dimensionator safe at the time of his disappearance. Talwyn winds up joining Ratchet for the PS3 games, and was the main reason he decided to stay behind and not look for the Lombaxes after Into the Nexus. Now look, I'm not buying or selling Talwyn as a character. Her omission doesn't ruin the game for me or anything like that, but it is an odd choice for the narrative to leave her out. All we see of her is a brief cameo in the credits. If they make another game, I hope her absence is explained to keep the narrative tied together. The same can be said for my man the Plumber. Limiting him to a cameo in the credits is a crying shame. It doesn't feel the same without him. Bring him back in the next installment, please.
Look, Plumber's crack.
What did you just say?
I said, look, the Plumber's back.
All right, wise guy.
The last character I want to touch on is Captain Qwark.
So I thought we could start with the whole I did my own stunts angle and sort of roll into my method for accomplishing this brooding stare.
He's been a recurring character throughout the series, and he barely gets any screen time in this one. However, this is more understandable as his voice actor has apparently retired following an Alzheimer's diagnosis. If we have seen the last of Jim Ward as the voice of Qwark, all this fan can say is thank you and wish him the best on the rest of his journey.
Hello? Is anyone out there? Hello? Celebrity in need of assistance! What's that, Snowball? Little Jimmy fell down a well? Oh, you're hungry for blood. Oh, I was way off.
Shifting to some miscellaneous topics now, starting with weapons. The weapons are mostly standard fare for the series at this point. You have your blaster, shotgun, and grenade weapons. There's the rocket launcher and the sniper rifle. A new addition is the Topiary Sprinkler, which allows you to drop a turret. Instead of damaging enemies directly, the turret turns them into shrubbery.
It is a good shrubbery.
This thing is super helpful, as turning your enemies into a bush while you attack them with other guns turns out to be an effective tactic. A few other wacky weapons round out the roster. The Drillhound fires barking missiles that tunnel underground before hitting your enemies. The Cold Snap turns enemies into ice cubes. The Lightning Rod electrocutes groups of enemies. And no Ratchet & Clank experience is complete without the RYNO.
What's a RYNO anyway?
Rip ya a new one.
What did you just say to me?
RYNO. Rip ya a new one.
This iteration drops items from rifts right onto your enemies' heads. Some of these are Easter eggs from past Insomniac and Naughty Dog projects. It's pretty cool. Get your hands on this one if you haven't already. The music of Rift Apart serves as a good example of where the series has been going musically over these last few years. The PS2 games had musical scores crafted for each planet, and it feels like they were meant to be heard. The music in modern Ratchet games feels like it's meant to blend together and serve as background music for what's happening on screen, with a few exceptions. While one approach isn't necessarily better than the other, I liked it better when the music was higher in the mix and you could easily identify the planet by the song that was playing. Others may feel differently. Speaking of planets, Rift Apart continues the trend of offering fewer environments to explore than its predecessors. The original Ratchet & Clank offered players 18 planets to explore. Going Commando and Up Your Arsenal each had 19. Deadlocked had 11, Tools of Destruction had 18, Crack in Time had 16 if you count the open world space sectors, Into the Nexus had 5, and while Rift Apart has 10, 4 of those are alternate dimension versions of planets we've seen previously. In fairness, the more recent games have fleshed out the few planets featured, so it takes longer to clear them. I'm assuming there are some efficiencies from a development standpoint to only create a few planets. That's less time spent designing the world and its assets and more time put into other areas of development. It's a trend I expect we'll see more of in the future. What does the future hold for the Ratchet & Clank franchise? The ending to Rift Apart hints that more content is coming. I have no idea when those will get released or what they will entail. Will we immediately join Ratchet, Clank, Rivet, and Kit on their journey to the Lombax dimension? Will we further expand the multiverse and introduce more Lombaxes as playable characters? Will we get a standalone Rivet and Kit adventure? If they don't bring back either Nefarious as an antagonist, who will the villain be? Is there a chance we see Tachyon once again?
And you are?
Emperor Percival Tachyon, Crown Prince of the Cragmites, conqueror of space and time, and, pending the obliteration of a few insubordinate species, ruler of the universe.
Your name's Percival?
He fell into a black hole at the end of Tools of Destruction. That does sound like an automatic death sentence, but what if he emerged from a rift on the other side of the black hole and is still alive? Tachyon's return would be an interesting choice, as he has a personal vendetta against all the Lombaxes. Another possibility I find intriguing is the idea of exploring what else happened in the universe when Clank time traveled at the end of Crack in Time. For those who don't know, Ratchet was killed by Alistair at the end of that game, only to have Clank go back in time to save him. What if turning back the clock saved not only Ratchet's life, but the life of a future series antagonist? And what if the plotline for a future game centers on time travel and forcing Ratchet and Clank to figure out a way to save Ratchet's life without saving the life of the villain? That's pure speculation, and I doubt Insomniac will do it, but it's fun to think about. Whatever the future holds, I hope it brings a new generation of fans the same sense of enjoyment I've had with the series over the last 2 decades. If you made it to the end of this video, you're the real MVP. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go take a cryo nap because this video took a lot of time and effort to make. Until next time, make it count.